Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Hey, welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macy, and I am so happy you're joining me today. So it has been a hot minute since I've released an episode, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about the topic I think goes along with this, which is why burnout can be your greatest wake-up call. Now, I don't feel like I have been in a season of burnout in my business, but I definitely noticed that I was feeling very tired. So in 2025, I will have been in business for myself for 7 years. And of those 7, I have been basically completely on my own without any extra, side job or occupational therapy for the last almost 4 years. And I just have to tell you that running a business is not for the faint of heart. It just isn't. It's really hard to wear so many hats because, at least in the coaching industry, like what I do, I'm not just showing up and coaching. I am the person writing emails, sending emails, scheduling things, working behind the scenes. I'm a web designer. I am a workbook creator. I am, an in-person event coordinator. I am like an event planner. Like there's just so many roles that keep my business going the way that it has been built. And I love the way that it's been built. I love what I've created, but oh my goodness, it can be so tiring. And what I found in the last few weeks is just this feeling of extreme fatigue and that wrestling that happens when you've grown into a version of yourself, you're growing beyond that version of yourself, but there's the piece of the brain that just wants to be cozy and comfortable and go back to like everything that you knew when it felt easier. So something that I noticed my brain doing, and maybe yours is doing this or has done this whenever you're, focused on your self-growth, you're focused on adding new skills, learning new things, changing different aspects about yourself, for the better. You'll notice that there's this wrestling that happens inside of your brain where it wants to convince you so bad to go back to who you were and where you've been instead of the unknown path of going forward. And also what happens a lot of times is if you start to feel fatigued in that process or you're battling any kind of burnout, it feels a lot easier to want to go back to the old autopilot way of doing things where your brain doesn't have to work as hard. So that's what I've noticed about myself in the last few weeks is that, and here's the thing, I have pushed through it, but I've also allowed myself the ability to stop letting certain plates spin when I don't have the capacity to go and push them to keep spinning. So the podcast was one of them for a brief period of time where I was just like, I have 12 plates spinning. I'm exhausted by the 12 plates that are spinning, and I just need to let one fall and not shame myself for letting it fall. I will pick it back up. I will replace the plate. I will get it spinning again. But I just need a minute to focus on these other plates and let that one fall. And so all of this to say with, kind of where I've been and what I've noticed about myself is this feeling of fatigue, which interestingly enough brought me to have crazy thoughts like, why don't I go back and be an occupational therapist? Or why don't I just go get a traditional job? That would just be so much easier. And then, I'd wrestle with the part of my brain that's just like, are you kidding me? You probably wouldn't survive more than a week in a traditional job after working for yourself. One, I've been working for myself in a non-traditional kind of aspect, even as an independent contractor per se, when you don't really have anybody over you. I've been doing that since, oh my gosh, like 2011 or 2012. So to go back to a traditional kind of position, it sounded really good to my brain in the height of feeling very fatigued, in the height of feeling stressed out. But then it was like, girl, it would not be good. So let's talk about why burnout can be your greatest wake-up call. And here's the thing, I think that this is the reason. I think the reason burnout can be our greatest wake-up call is because it shows us the areas where, one, we need to slow down, and two, the areas where we need to expand our capacity. And I don't mean expand capacity as in push yourself beyond the point of, anything healthy, where you're absolutely drained and then you're just pushing that much further and you get yourself in a worse off position. I don't mean that, but I mean expanding your capacity to carry a heavier load. So here's something that I can relate it to. I know that this might not make sense for everybody, but I see this in business a lot where certain business owners, let's say that they're making a certain amount of money. It can be any range that you can think of. You can make it up in your mind, let's say 50 to 70 or 100 to 150. And everything that they're managing at that level can feel very tiring and, feel like fatigue or just overwhelm. And so when I say expand the capacity, it has to be expanding your capacity to grow and stretch to the next level, thinking about what you need in order to support yourself to go a step above where you're at now. So is that boundaries? Is that rest? Is that hiring people to help you so that you can, let certain plates keep spinning without crashing to the ground, but you're not the one necessarily in charge 100% of the time of the plates spinning. So that's what I mean by expand our capacity. And sometimes getting to the place of fatigue or burnout can be a really helpful, I think, indication of something has to shift. So sometimes this is even for your everyday typical person that is, overwhelmed, struggling, burnt out. It can be that moment where they simply decide, I have to change things. I can't keep going on this way. And I think a lot of my audience and a lot of my clients, and even I know personally myself, have had this situation, which is what led me here talking to you guys, 200 and something episodes later in the first place. I was a very overwhelmed, overstimulated, stressed out occupational therapist. And every day that I was going to work, I was emotionally activated or triggered by something. And it was a lot of times because of things I hadn't healed within myself, with just my own family dynamics. And I would go into these work environments, and these work environments, if they were really healthy and loving, it would trigger me. If they were really sad and dysfunctional, it would trigger me, right? And I didn't have the tools at the time to understand why that was happening. And so therefore, in my job, I felt a lot of burnout because I didn't have the emotional intelligence tools. I didn't have the mindset. I didn't have the self-awareness. And so maybe you're there too. I know a lot of my clients end up in this spot too before they reach out for help. And what it essentially led to in me, though, is this absolute, almost like a breakdown to breakthrough moment where I really realized that something in my life had to change, and I had to draw my line in the sand, and I wanted to change my life. So I don't think that fatigue or burnout is necessarily this terrible thing. It is an invitation to slow down and take a breath, take a breather, which I think provides a lot of clarity in your life of what is happening or what's next, or, what do you have going on that's maybe unaddressed. But ultimately, I think it actually makes the path more clear. Because I think whenever we're experiencing any kind of fatigue or burnout, everything just feels foggy, right? It feels foggy, it feels overwhelming, it feels stressful, it feels like a lot. And then the brain does this thing where it's like, let's go back to the easiest scenario possible, whatever that was from your past that requires the least amount of effort and thinking and showing up. Okay, and so that's what your brain wants to do. It's like, let's just forget how far we've come and just go back to the easiest thing. And without any kind of self-awareness tools or understanding that this is what's going on, that's exactly what your brain is going to take you into doing. Okay, it's going to go back to the way of making the easiest decision. So for me, in the last few weeks, it's like, yeah, you know what? I think I'll just go work for somebody else. That would be so much easier than instead of, having 18 jobs as an entrepreneur, I'd only have one. Someone else would tell me what to do. I'd just show up and I'd collect a paycheck. I wouldn't have to be spinning 12 to 18 plates. I wouldn't have to worry about it crushing to the ground. And the funny thing about this is we know, like anybody listening, that you just trade certain problems for other problems. You know what I mean? Because if I could ask any of my clients, most of which are in a traditional kind of career or corporate role, they have their complaints as well, right? So the grass always looks greener, especially during burnout and feeling tired. And I just want to encourage you that part of that burnout can be a sign of like, slow yourself down. What parts can you control? What parts can you release? And what is the bigger picture here? Like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you asking for help? Are you managing your time well? Are you scheduling enough like self-care? And not even the self-care that's like, go get your nails done, go to the spa, go get, your hair done. Those things are great, but I think self-care is even deeper than that. It's like, are you reading books to like expand your mind? Are you listening to podcasts that are going to help you see a different perspective? What are you doing as far as nourishing your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit? And I think that those things are some of the deepest self-care things. So yes, some of those activities like let's go get a massage or let's go, be pampered in some way. Those things feel really good and they're not a bad thing. It's definitely a way to take care of self. But those moments pass really quickly. And when you're thrown back into the same environment, the same kind of schedule or pattern, at the end of the day, what do you need most to take care of yourself? You need tools. You need ways to actually understand yourself and what's going on so that you can change the trajectory that you're on for the better, right? Just make some improvements that are going to make your life feel much better. So I do believe that burnout can be our greatest wake-up call. And I know for me in the last few weeks, it has just highlighted some different things that I need to focus on. It's also highlighted for me between myself and even clients, like we need to have fun. I think when we grow up and we become an adult, we truly, truly forget how to tap into that inner child and have fun. And it is so important to reconnect with that part of yourself because life is so busy. We get overwhelmed with things. We're juggling a lot. We're spinning a lot of plates. For women, a lot of times we're the caretaker to many, whether that is our spouse, our children, sometimes aging parents, pets. Then you've got people that maybe you're leading or guiding in your job. And it can become so overwhelming and so draining. And a part of just lifting our spirit, reigniting that, life inside of us that, is in there, is to reconnect with having fun. So how often are you playing in your life, even as an adult? How often are you laughing? How often are you engaged in enriching conversations? that help you grow, but also fun conversations that just make you appreciate the little things in life and the company that you have. And so these are things that I've been reconnecting with as I've experienced this, short little season, thank goodness, of just feeling a little bit tired or a lot of bit tired. And, again, for me, it's not so much been a total burnout, but it has been like, oh man, this is really, really hard. And I know also that it's an invitation for me as a business owner to grow to my next level. And I think that I have, in a way, been in a comfort zone where things have been, cozy and great for a certain amount of time. And I think what this season has brought to life for me is like, yeah, you need to make some changes or incorporate some different things that are going to, challenge you and push you, but in a good way, not in you're already tired, let's make you more tired way, but more so like you just need to grow your capacity, your skill set, your, ability to rise to the next level, which is going to push you and feel uncomfortable, but it's time. So I hope that this episode encourages you that if you're feeling any kind of fatigue or burnout, that it can really truly be an invitation to your next season, your next level. And it can also be your greatest wake-up call, just shaking you internally that something has to give or something has to change. And the important thing to remember is that only you can change it. Okay, only you can be the person that changes those things in your life or those pieces in your life that don't feel like they're working for you anymore. Maybe for a time period they worked beautifully, but maybe what you're noticing now is it's just not working. And if you want it to change, if you want your emotional experiences to be different, it all starts with the work you do on the inside. So just remember, everything that you want to change externally has to start with what you do internally. And in order to really understand and know what's happening internally, you have to make it an active practice because our subconscious mind is so good at autopilot. It's so good at sticking with the mundane, sticking with the routines, sticking with things that are easy and simple so that you don't have any kind of work to do. So there's a layered process to this, and as daunting as it may sound and as hard as sometimes it can be, I promise you when you're doing it, it will be one of the most rewarding things you could ever do in your life, ever. I promise you that. You will be so grateful you did, no matter how hard it is. And I know if you're on the journey, and you have felt at different parts how hard it is, I guarantee you, if you ask yourself the question, do I regret any of it? Would I go back to who I was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? More times than not. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say they would go back to the old version of themselves with the old things, unless back then they felt happy and free and they're trying to figure out where they lost themselves along the way and they want to go back to that level of joy. That's the only time I've ever heard someone say, I wish I could go backward. And it's more so because they've lost themselves, right? And they've lost themselves because they haven't been focused on what was going on internally along the journey of aging and time passing. So again, your work here starts on the inside. And if you are feeling any kind of fatigue or burnout or overwhelm or stress in your life, let me just tell you, let that be your greatest wake-up call to make some changes and to do something different that is going to be worthwhile in the long term, okay? So if you need any help with any of this kind of work, you know where to find me. You can figure out what I do as a coach on MacyRenee.com. It's always linked in the show notes. follow me on social media at Macy Renee Coaching. And most importantly, make sure you're on my email list. Social media is something that I do try to do, but I'm not as consistent on social media as I am talking to my email list. So when you get on my email list, you stay up to date on all of that. You get all of my brain nuggets for free. And then, sometimes I post them on social media, but mostly I feel like I talk to my email list most often these days. So make sure that you sign up and join that. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you soon. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macyrenee.com anytime you want, so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.